This is me walking the hallways of the Apple Music studio in LA. I'll admit it was quite the opportunity traveling halfway around the world to catch a tour of the place, so this video is to share with you what I've seen. Now, from what I know, it is quite rare to be shown around inside the facility like this, and to understand why that is, it makes sense when you know the purpose of this place. It's a 15,000 square foot campus with studio facilities for Apple Music's artists to perform, record, or film in. They could do interviews here, they could write songs, mix songs, record podcasts, and this caters to a whole range of artists, including some of the most recognizable names in music. So you can imagine it's a very busy space, and there's constantly mysterious and important work going on. So stepping inside, this is the welcome area. First thing that greets you is this striking Apple Music logo, and it's white on white, so it's striking not out of tonal contrast, but this entire logo is made of glass, and it's got this really mesmerizing, iridescent, multicolor sheen to it. Iridescent is really the right word to describe it. It's glass made using a special technique, so the color's doing something interesting when you look at it from different angles, and it makes it really hard to stop looking at it. Just off to the left of the reception are the two radio studios housed in the facility. We weren't able to step inside because there was a live session happening in the radio studio then and there. There is a live feed right there in the lobby to see what's going on inside, and it feels surreal because right there was Zane Lowe doing an episode of his 26 for 26 series, which is a series where he spotlights his list of 26 artists who are going to shape what 2026 sounds like.
Well, that is live.
I've also always been super fascinated by these mics they use in the show because they don't look like they exist. And of course it turns out these are completely custom made and completely unique to the studio. You do not see any cables running to and from the mic, and the mic capsule is in the arm itself. You can add or remove entire arms depending on how many guests they have on the show, and it's all super cool. Down the main hallway going into the facility, there was a control room where the live session from the radio studio was being worked on. There was a team at work in there, so it did not film inside, but imagine a room filled with desks and AV equipment, displays showing multi-views almost exactly like this one, which are captured in another room, which was the spatial audio mix room. This is my favorite room in the building because the speaker setup in here is a 9.2.4 system for spatial audio playback. That means surrounding you at ear level are 9 speakers, and these are full-on, floor-standing, dual cabinet 3-way units. In addition, there's still 2 discrete subwoofers, and above you are 4 more elevated speakers for that full spatial audio bubble. All these speakers are from a brand called PMC, which stands for Professional Monitor Company. They are a British speaker company who's been awarded an Emmy for their contributions to the recording industry. The hardware in this room is just bonkers. I can't even name what the control surface is or what's going on in all these racks. I do see 2 Mac Pros powering the whole setup, and there's also an Apple TV in there, because why wouldn't there be? But we weren't there to just stare at speakers. We were guided to where the sweet spot of this whole setup is and experience spatial audio in a physical space. So it's different to listening to spatial audio through a pair of AirPods, because that uses hit tracking to simulate where a sound is coming from. This speaker setup uses all these speakers around you to place the sounds in the space you're in. What's cool is, the spatial audio track we experienced on this insane multi-speaker setup is actually the exact same digital file you would listen to on AirPods. That's because when music is mixed in Dolby Atmos, you can actually take a sound and record its placement in 3D space as an object. And that means even though the configuration of your playback equipment is different, that same mix can be compatible across them. Listening to music in the middle of that room felt like the ultimate listening experience. It was mind-blowing sound quality mated with this sensational feeling of dimension because of spatial audio. Among the handful of tracks we had the pleasure of listening to in there, One track really stood out to me. Rosa Pastel by Peso Pluma and Haziel Nunez. I highly recommend grabbing a pair of AirPods and listening to this track twice. Once in traditional stereo and once more in spatial audio, because they are going to sound like two entirely different experiences. You will hear things in the spatial audio version which do not happen in the stereo mix. In spatial, right from the intro, there's a pair of guitars moving around you, and after a while, right in front of you, a muted trumpet is going to start playing, and it does one full circle around you, and right when it completes that circle, the vocals kick in. It's a lot of fun to listen to, and it's such an example of a piece that's really brought to life in spatial audio. Reluctantly, we had to pull ourselves out of that room because there was still a tour to get on with, so we continued down the hallway to the soundstage. This is a 4,000 square foot soundstage for performances, shoots, events, or screenings. Now, I was brought into the soundstage to have a look inside, but unfortunately I can't show you because there were some pretty interesting things happening in there. It's a pretty rectangular shaped soundstage with really tall ceilings, which do seem like they might be as high up as the entire 3-story building. What stood out to me in their soundstage were the walls, because usually when you walk into a soundstage, the walls are just bare exposed acoustic material. Nobody cares what they look like because they never end up on camera. But the walls in this soundstage were this proper smooth, almost space gray matte finish. It's just a very pretty, acoustically treated wall for a soundstage. I also remember looking upwards and noticing the house lights. They were not your typical greenish factory cans. They've got these warm circular ring lights which look like a bunch of halos just brightening up the floor. Way too nice for a soundstage, but then again, this ain't any soundstage. This is an Apple soundstage. Moving upstairs, we were walking through this very unique corridor curated by Zane Lowe himself. Every print on this wall featuring these artists we know and love, these are not arbitrary, because each one of these prints are from moments in time unique to Apple Music. Apple owns every single one of these prints, so you won't be seeing these elsewhere. Just to highlight a few, this is from Ray's Concert for One, produced in 2024, exclusively for release on Vision Pro. Here's Ed Sheeran from this 2023 Apple Music live session in London, which you can watch and listen to in spatial audio on Apple Music. And here's Lady Gaga just last year on the Zane Lowe interview in New York City. At the end of this hallway, we were treated to some very nice refreshments, along with a refresher of some of Apple Music's latest features, such as lyric translations, pronunciations, as well as auto mix. I ended the tour with a quick trip to the restroom, of course I had to, and realized the sink faucet matches my Apple Watch perfectly. I also could not help but think about how many pop stars must have used this exact same restroom that I'm using at the moment. Still keeps me up at night, but that was my experience touring the Apple Music studio in Los Angeles. I'll drop links below to all the cool stuff on Apple Music, which I referenced in this tour, and I hope to be seeing you around.